You ever step into an interview feeling fully prepared only to get knocked right on your ass with a question from left field? I'm sure we all have at some point. And if you haven't, well, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. But it's inevitable. And throughout my 10-year career in cybersecurity, I've come across some interview questions that have just left me speechless, feeling dumb, or just questioning if this is even the right career for me, but and though these questions, they happen while I was still learning, they're still relevant now in 2023, meaning somebody might actually find this information useful in their next interview. So let one person's mistake be another person's wisdom. And this is going to be during this series I call failed interview questions. I'll share my most embarrassing interview questions that left me stumped, and two, the correct answer to the question. So stick around. In this episode, we'll explore CSP, or Content Security Policy. And man, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know what the hell CSP was outside of seeing it in the request headers at the time of this interview. So imagine my face when I'm in the last round of interviews for a senior security engineering role, and they asked me to explain CSP and what it does. I was shooketh. So first off, how did I get there? A senior role in security, and I didn't know what or how CSP worked. Well, I had everything else: a master's in computer science, some experience in security. I could speak both technically and layperson to anyone from server owners to management level. I was able to answer questions relating to OWASP Top 10 with in-depth examples. I had experience working with developers to prioritize vulnerabilities and track remediation to completion. I was very technical to some degree, I thought, and hands-on. What also helped me was very early in my career, my first job, I had to create a vulnerability management program from the ground up. Just me, one person, on a 4-man team. And I'll tell you that story in another video. But all those things in a stellar resume got me through the door with this group, this interview. And so the last interview was actually my second, and it was with the director. And just, for some context, usually a conversation with the director, it's not typically technical. It's not typically a technical conversation. It's more of a behavioral one. They try to see how you'll fit in with the culture of the organization, the team, or their management style. They may throw some questions in, they may throw in some other questions as well, but that depends on the organization. But there are still, however, some very, very technical and hands-on directors and managers. I have very technical managers and very technical directors at the place I work at now. So they do exist. And, it's just, I guess early in my career, I hadn't come across so many, especially with all the interviews I did. I had not come across so many technical directors or managers, but they do exist. So don't be fooled just because of the title. They're still out there. So prior to seeing the director, though, for this interview, I thought I had gone through the worst part of interviews with one of the senior engineers. It was a grueling hour of back-to-back, technical questions, fucking exhausting. And I almost didn't have the time to ask questions for myself. And these technical questions, if you've never gone through a technical interview, that I don't like technical interviews. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't like them. I don't like interviews. I don't like pop quizzes. I don't like quizzes. An interview seems like a pop quiz to me. It's not a conversation. It's not like casually talking about things and asking and prying and going deeper. It's tell me about this, explain this, do this. And that's not me. That's not me. I like for you to we have conversation and you dive deeper and you try to understand my mind. But, that's not how a lot of interviews were at the time. So anyway, they were asking these questions, this hour-long technical conversation. And pro tip, interview the team like they're interviewing you. Also, that's something I learned early in my career. You're not just working with them, they're working with you. Make sure to have questions lined up on the side that are both technical and behavioral for yourself. It will help you not only to stand out, but also it helps you make the best decision for you. So that's why I said at the end, I didn't really have questions for myself, but I did ask some. And a lot of times when I wasn't able to answer questions, I fired it back at them. That's another conversation. But anyway, now that interview had passed and we were on the last round with the director, the recruiter said there might be some technical questions, but the director was looking more for the candidate's behavior. So, the recruiter told me there shouldn't really just be, just go in like you did the last time. And so I went in confident. The worst had passed, but I was dead wrong. We were 20 minutes into a 30-minute interview, 20 minutes into a 30-minute interview. And he had mostly asked the behavioral questions, right? Just like the recruiter said he would. I was thinking, man, this is in the bag. We were great, having good conversation. I have this personality. I'm likable. I answered all the hard questions. I got through the first part. There's only 10 minutes left. And that's usually when they flip the questions around and say, they flip around and they say, do you have any questions? And I'll ask him some questions and then I'll write them down, get his answers, and we'll end on a good note. Like that's what's in my head, right? And he did instead. He finished laughing from our exchange. That's my dog, I'm sorry. He finished laughing from our exchange, sipped his coffee because we were on a Zoom, and then said, oh, I don't think I asked this question. Can you tell me how CSP works? Yeah. My fucking face dropped. My heart sunk. I know my face was looking crazy because I was on Zoom and I was looking at me looking crazy. Like, what? Why would you do that? Like, why would you fucking social engineered me, like got my guard down and everything. I stumbled on my words for like seconds. I gave a couple of ums and I finally just said, I can't. And he did something that I really despise when interviewers do that. They say, oh, that's all right. Do you have any questions for me? That's okay. No, it's not okay. And it's not okay because if it was okay, I would have got the job. But he said, do you have any questions? And my hands were shaking. They were sweaty. I could feel my pulse on the other side of my neck. I'm not even going to lie. I even felt the need to I wonder if he'll hear me tapping and look up the answer real quick. But I didn't do it. I just said, you know what? I started studying and eventually I just muttered out my 2 questions for the remaining 8 minutes. And I ended the call feeling defeated. And no, I did not get the job. They passed me up. And when I asked the recruiter, why, just because I always do that. I suggest do that. I always ask, what happened? And because I know in my head, how you go for a senior role and you don't know what CSP is. And I just need to hear it. But the recruiter got back to me. He said, and I quote, this is what the director said about me. They didn't seem to have the experience we were looking for. And yeah, I was simultaneously embarrassed and pissed, but I moved forward and I did get another job sooner. I mean, obviously I'm employed. So, within the next 2 weeks, because I had a bunch of interviews rolling. And so, yay, me, I got a job. But one thing about me, I do not like to be shown up when it comes to knowledge. So I researched the hell out of what CSP is, why it even exists, and above all, how the it works. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first off, CSP stands for Content Security Policy, and it's an additional layer of security that helps to detect, let me say it a little slowly, helps to detect and mitigate injection attacks such as cross-site scripting. Now, if you don't know what that means, you might have to go look that up, or I'll put out another video. But you know what? I'll give you a little something. So if you don't know what cross-site scripting is, in a nutshell, it's an attack that exploits the browser's trust in the content it receives from the server. It could come in the form of a malicious script. Now, that's all you're going to get for free. I'm not going to go into too much depth because I don't want this video to be that long. But if you want to know more about it, drop a video comment and I'll add it to my queue. So how does CSP work? How exactly does it prevent these cross-site scripting attacks? How does it work? Well, first you have to understand this. One, the browser interacts with three main languages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Two, JavaScript operates on two levels, one controlled by the user and the other controlled by the site. Three, CSP deals with JavaScript that can function on the site level, which is where we'll focus our brains for understanding this concept. So, again, think about the words content security policy. One thing that you have to know about tech people, we are a bit like straight up, sometimes like just straight up content security policy. Usually when there is a policy in place, there are a set of rules. What are they? A set of rules. So now let's think about this. Content security policy, or a set of rules to secure the content. So what does that mean? It means that the admin of the server that the site is on activates a set of rules within the content security policy, within the policy, to define what can and what cannot manipulate JavaScript within the site. What can and cannot manipulate the what can and cannot manipulate the content. So, what does that look like? Again, this is from the site level, not the user. So we're looking at it from the company's perspective, right? So let's say we have a site, lightisthebest.com. And we obviously have some JavaScript, but we only want the application to load content from our domain, lightisthebest.com, and any subdomains under that. We would set a rule in the policy like this to do just that. Now, if the source isn't from my domain or any of my subdomains, that content will be blocked and logged. And we don't have to worry about injections so much, but that's not all that needs to happen. Just FYI, there's layers to this. And remember, there's layers in defense, but this is just a step in the right direction for content security. So even though you put that in, I'm saying that because just because you put the policy in place doesn't mean you don't need to put others security controls in place. So that's just a step in the right direction. So that's literally it. I feel crazy for not even knowing that information at that time. It was so simple, but I did learn something new on my journey, and it helped me become a more knowledgeable, growing security professional. And I hope you found that valuable too and helpful for yourself. And as a bonus, because love goes above and beyond here, I'll give you some advantages and disadvantages to enforcing CSP. So a few advantages to having CSP. It forces a secure connection. Crazy enough, there are still sites out there that still use that insecure HTTP protocol, which is a big red flag. And we need secure protocols like HTTPS at minimum, and CSP enforces that. It can prevent data from being sent from the web page to criminals and will generate a CSP violation notification in the console of the page the moment an attempt is being made. CSP also blocks data that's it blocks attacks that send customer data to third parties on behalf of the company. It also decides which domains can load content and execute JavaScript on your site. As we said before, companies still have to make this determination and will have to do their due diligence. But again, it's a step in the right direction. Some of the disadvantages to having CSP: user level content will still be able to, you're still able to manipulate the DOM, just not on behalf of the company. There are some incompatibilities with CSP in some browsers such as Safari, those aren't compatible with with CSP, and that needs to be taken into consideration when you're making applications or websites, because people have Macs. But that's it. That's it for this segment. We've covered CSP and how it works. Remember, it's a set of rules to secure a site's content. You'll need more technical knowledge to really dive into those rules and how to enforce them. But know that anything that violates those rules will be blocked at the gate. So I hope that this information and my horrible story helps you on your cybersecurity journey. And remember to stay vigilant and proactive in your quest to secure the web. And I'll see you next time.